What's going on, everybody? This is Nick from House of Paint 203, bringing you the Umber Hulks one-off. This is a relatively straightforward model that I happened to find at my local gaming store, and I have to tell you, very excited to paint it. I've had many run-ins with Umber Hulks in my time as a player character, and they almost always went terribly. So I'm happy to commemorate those experiences with a fully painted model here. And so much like the Displacer Beast, I'm going to try to get some cool effects going on it, but I don't really see the need for 3 parts. So before we get started, just remember to smite like and slam subscribe so that you can stay up to date on all the latest content that I'm putting out there. In my quest to paint the manual, I'm trying to bring you guys a new monster every week for the year of 2021. That was my New Year's resolution, and thus far I have stuck to it. I'm going to continue to try to stick to that. I do have a nice little pipeline going here, so without further ado, let's get started. The first thing I'm going to give him is an all-over base coat of Rhinox hide. Guys, a short and sweet. That is an all-over base coat. You can see parts of it are still drying. This is one coat. So in some spots you can see, the black primer kind of showing through underneath. I'm gonna bring it up to almost like a golden brown, gold brown / yellowy type of hue. So we're gonna be exploring with various shades of browns, maybe some yellows in here. That base coat, believe it or not, I sped the video up for you guys, but that base coat took me about 20 minutes, just full disclosure. So that's normal, if you're base coating and you're sitting there and you're like, this is taking forever. The important thing is to just stay the course, keep everything thin. One of the habits that I was falling into early on when I first started painting was, putting globs of paint on and trying to do it, quickly. But, it pays off in the long run to, keep the coats thin, keep the coats nice and diluted, and you'll get a really much, you get a much nicer effect on your model. So that's the base coat. I think I may stick with just the one base coat in the upper areas. Maybe I'll put, or in the more rounded areas, maybe I'll go in with another light coat. But for the most part, I think we're ready to move on to midtones. I'm gonna go ahead and start bringing this up with a little mixture of heavy brown and Rhinox hide. either side of his jaw here too, like his big mandibles. I'm gonna try to leave that Rhinox hide in the middle. We'll let that dry, and then we will come back and do another layer, probably with pure heavy brown. All right, so going in with a straight up heavy brown, I'm gonna go over the dry brush that I just did. It's using a little less pressure, and I'm only really getting the areas that are more exposed to light. So anything on the outside, for the most part, I'm gonna be touching up with this dry brush here. All right, cool. There is some of that heavy brown. And next I'm gonna put a little layer of the some leather brown on this to kind of bring out some like kind of goldish yellow, goldish brown, yellowy brown sort of effect. I'm gonna go with a little leather brown here as kind of a mid-max highlight to add some of that golden brown coloration here. Picking my spots with this, trying to get the most raised areas of the figure. So there we go there. Go with some max highlights here of some leather brown and bone white. So doing a little work on his face here. It's drying. I'm going to go into these eyes. All right, so I've gone ahead and glued him down, which is probably pretty dumb because I still have to dry brush him a little bit. So I'm gonna try to do that now. Got a little heavy gray. Just going ahead and dry brushing here. These guys do primarily inhabit the underdark. So this ground is going to be pretty dark. So I'm just trying to take advantage of the texture here. It's already on the miniature. Just try to catch that with my dry brush. Really a little more of an overbrush. I did leave a little bit of wet paint on there. Just making sure I get all the little areas. And I have these color shift paints that I also want to try out. I'm not sure if dry brush will really work, but this is it's called Martian Green. It actually is kind of more of a purple, but what I'm hoping for is to try and add some kind of like a little quartzy type of element to this when it gets hit in certain angles. I thought that would be pretty cool. I don't typically like to do this kind of thing with a dry brush, but I just wanted to see how it would look. And it like kind of goes purple to green, so it does have that kind of like little darkness effect to it. Move ahead. I'm gonna take these battlefield rocks. I'm gonna prime them in black. So I'm gonna spray them with black primer. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'll see you when I'm done. All right, so I decided that while the rocks were drying, I'm gonna take I wanted to take like kind of the swamp rocks, or the river rocks, and put them down here because I like the way that they look. I like the way that they're like kind of crushed and gravelly. So I thought those would be a nice complement to the larger stones that I have. And to try and get some cohesion here, I'm gonna take a little bit of this storm surge, or not storm surge, the Martian, and just kind of start working it on these a little bit, see if I can grab some of that same sheen. All right, looking like the rocks are pretty dry. So I'll go ahead and start popping those on down. All right, so there we have it, the Umber Hulk. Definitely a fun one to paint and a fun one-off really to take advantage of. A lot of great texture on this model. And I very much enjoyed it. And as always, I thank you for following me. Information on how to follow me on all my social media platforms is immediately following the video, as is information on how to follow Dominic Marriott of Credit UK and Mike Donnarummo of MVD Studios. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.